What is going on, guys? This is Jake at That Fit Friend, and today I'm reviewing the Reebok NanoFlex V2. So 3 pros that I have with this model is number 1, its price point. So this model cost $90 USD. If you are looking into Reebok training shoes and you don't feel like dropping $135 on something like the Reebok Nano 12 or on the Reebok Nano 11, I think this is a pretty good comparable model, and it's gonna save you $45 USD. So it is a pretty good, well-rounded training shoe for its price point, and I definitely think the price is fair for this model. Now, my second pro with this shoe is its performance. Honestly, this shoe has been pretty stellar across the board, and especially when you consider that it costs less than $100 USD, you always assume that something's gonna fall off, but honestly, for recreational lifting, some casual CrossFit workouts, for athletic style training, even sprints and short runs, this shoe has done a pretty good job. So I think for most recreational lifters and folks who dabble in a little bit of everything on a weekly basis in regard to their training, this shoe should suffice pretty well. Plus, it is pretty dang comfortable, so I have been rocking them on a daily wear basis, and they haven't beat my feet up. Something that I didn't like about the NanoFlex TR was that the midfoot could get a little bit uncomfortable. This model doesn't seem to have that same issue. It seems to be widened a little bit. It doesn't have such a sharp contrast to the midfoot from the forefoot, so I do think this shoe could be a viable option for somebody who wants to save a little bit of money, wants a shoe for a little bit of everything, and that they can rock out and about on a daily wear basis. My third pro with this model is that I'm stoked that Reebok implemented the Metasplit tech up here in the forefoot, and they have better rope pro tech here on the midfoot. So in the Reebok Nano 11 and 12, the shortcoming of that shoe, especially for CrossFit focused sessions, was the sole durability with rope climbs. This model's rope tech actually has a little bit of a rounded construction, so I do think it will last a little bit longer. So again, if you're looking for that budget-friendly shoe that can do a little bit of everything, and you throw in some casual rope climbs here and there, this model should do a pretty good job. We also have an extended outsole layer that wraps up, biased towards the medial side. I like that for durability, and the Metasplit tech up here in the forefoot gives this shoe's toe box a little bit more mobility, so even when doing sprints and plyometrics, this model has felt pretty comfortable, and I've liked the maneuverability that you get from this model. So I think this model is honestly a step in a really good direction for the NanoFlex line. The TR was okay. This model I think is hands down a lot better, but now let's talk about 2 cons that I have with this shoe. So 2 cons that I have with the NanoFlex V2 is number 1, its performance is going to be a little limited as you get more specific with your training. This model is going to be best served as being a good, well-rounded shoe for a little bit of everything. However, if you are only focused on your barbell lifts and you're pushing your top end strength on a weekly basis, or if you're only going to be doing CrossFit workouts, you may want to explore training shoes that are a bit more specific in nature. This model's stability is okay. It is not the best by any means per cross-training shoes, and the stack height of the shoe isn't the best for heavy deadlifts. Now, in the context of CrossFit, while this model will work for a class here and there and some CrossFit specific training, and it can work for casual rope climbs, I do think if you're hammering them every single week with burpees and rope climbs and stuff that's going to cause a lot of abrasion on the upper of the shoe, I would say that the long-term durability in this model may fall off compared to other models that are a bit more specific for that type of training. My second con with this shoe is that I wish there was a slightly beefier toe guard up here in the lateral forefoot. So we have a synthetic layer here at the base of the lateral forefoot and over here on the medial forefoot, wrapping from the big toe down to the midfoot. However, there's this awkward area where there's not a ton of support. So for things like broad jumps and more lateral work, I would prefer to have a little bit more support in the shoe, especially because this mesh is pretty breathable and lightweight. So that is something that I would say is a knock against this model, especially for more athletic style training. Now, did I really notice it? Did it impact performance? Not really. There were a couple of movements where I was like, dang, I wish I had a little bit more support. But overall, the toe box has been pretty good, but that is a little gripe that I have with the construction while nitpicking the shoe. Now let's talk about the performance of the NanoFlex V2. So when it comes to the performance of the Reebok NanoFlex V2, I'm going to discuss how the shoe performs for lifting, versatile training, shorter runs, and then daily wear. In the context of lifting, I thought this model has been pretty solid. Is it going to be your best shoe for maxing out your squat and deadlift? No. However, it does a pretty good job, I think, for most folks who are going to be using them for more general strength work. So if, for example, on a weekly basis, you do some barbell training, some machine work, and some dumbbell and kettlebell accessories, the shoe should suffice pretty well when it comes to stability. And if I had to compare it to another Reebok training shoe, honestly, the stability is pretty dang comparable to the Reebok Nano 12 and 11. When it comes to versatile training, I have enjoyed this shoe for 3 reasons. Number 1, I feel like the upper does a pretty good job at giving you enough security. Now again, I do wish we had a beefier toe guard up here, but when it comes to multi-directional work, I thought this upper security in this shoe has done an exceptional job, especially for $90 USD. So if you want a shoe for classes here and there or more athletic style training, this model should deliver a pretty strong performance for you. The second reason why I like them for versatile training is this meta-split tech in the outsole. It's a subtle feature, but it does help give this model's toe box a little bit more maneuverability. I have thoroughly enjoyed this shoe for some of my post-activation potentiation days where I was doing heavier lifts to plyometrics. Overall, I felt like this model was pretty maneuverable, pretty mobile, and I never felt hindered by this shoe's overall fit and rigidity. The third reason why I've enjoyed this model for versatile training is the rubber outsole and that outsole wrap up here on the toe box. So with more budget-friendly training shoes, you can often run the risk of having outsoles that have exposed foam layers. This then hinders that shoe's performance on things like turf and concrete. Overall, this model's outsole has done a pretty good job with durability, and I could see it promoting a good traction on different surfaces, so it does add to this model's overall versatility with its performance. When it comes to shorter runs, this model actually hasn't been that bad. So I've used them for a couple of sprint sessions and they've been pretty solid. And if you plan to run in this model, I would say probably cap your runs to like 1, 2, maybe 3 miles at most. So if you do want a shoe for pre or post workout shorter runs, the shoe should do a pretty good job in that context. And for sprints, honestly, they've done a pretty good job too. And that was outdoors on concrete where the surface is a little bit tougher than running on something like turf. When it comes to daily wear, I've also enjoyed this shoe, and that's for 2 reasons. Number 1, the upper breathes pretty well. So this mesh upper is pretty lightweight and flexible, so it doesn't feel super hot when wearing this model all day. And then the second reason why I've liked this model for daily wear is this shoe actually has an ortholite insole in it. So it's not technically removable, and I'll talk about this in my construction section, but I took mine out. Essentially, we have a slightly thicker insole in this model, which adds a little bit more comfort if you're on your feet all day wearing this shoe. So if you do want a training shoe that you can kind of beat up and wear out and about for daily wear context, I thought this model did a pretty good job. Overall, I've enjoyed this shoe's performance. It's been one of my more subtly surprising shoes that I've tested of recently, but if you have any additional questions on the performance of this model, obviously drop a comment down below. So when it comes to price in the NanoFlex V2, and I know I've already talked about it in this video, you can expect to pay $90 USD. Honestly, I feel like that price point is pretty fair for this model's construction and overall performance. So if you are on the market for a training shoe for less than $100 USD, this model could definitely be worth exploring. All right, so now let's answer the question, who should invest in the Reebok NanoFlex V2? So I think if you're on the market looking into training shoes and you are trying to spend less than $100 USD, this could be a very viable option to explore. It does a pretty good job across the board. It is much better than the NanoFlex TR in my opinion, and its durability seems to be pretty solid for what it is. So I do think it's a pretty viable option to explore, and if you are into Reebok training shoes, I would say it's most comparable almost to the Reebok Nano 9. Now, is it as strong as that model? No, I don't think so. However, it does give me like Nano 9 vibes, which is honestly a good thing in my opinion. So overall, I do think this model could be worth it for folks who are looking for more budget-friendly training shoes. So when it comes to sizing and fit in the NanoFlex V2, most lifters and athletes should be safe going true to size in this model. The length fits true, and the width is what I would describe as being more neutral in nature. This model's midfoot is way more comfortable in my opinion compared to the NanoFlex TR, so if that model bothered you, I think this model should do better in that context. But again, most lifters and athletes should be safe going true to size in this model. All right, so now let's chat on the weight, heel, toe drop, and insole in the NanoFlex V2. So for my size 10 model here, we have a weight of 11.80 ounces. The heel to toe drop in this model is 7 millimeters, and this model does not technically feature a removable insole. However, it does have this ortholite insole. It's only held in by a light adhesive, so you can take it out. I've taken mine out and I haven't had any issues with security. So if you have custom orthotics or inserts and you want a budget-friendly training shoe, this model could be worth looking into. Plus the upper is a little bit higher with its volume, so you can take out that insole and get a little bit more room if you need to put your own insole into this model. All right, so now let's cover the construction of the NanoFlex V2. Up here on the toe box, we have an extended outsole layer that wraps up. It is slightly biased towards the medial side and thicker in nature. I like that for overall durability. Looking at the upper construction, we have a mesh upper throughout with some textile lining. So over here on the lateral side, we have a synthetic layer. Over here on the medial side, we also have synthetic layers. And then we have Reebok branding throughout the midfoot. And the heel back here is a bit more padded in nature, and it has a little bit more structure. We also have these TPU heel clips back here for additional support and stability. I personally like this feature in this model. Looking at the midfoot construction, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eyelets that wrap up with the 6 back here for lace lock. We have 2 additional tongue loops here for security. The tongue is not gusseted, but I haven't had any issues with the tongue yet moving while training, and the shoelaces are pretty long and thick in nature. They stay pretty secure, however, the laces are a little bit long in this model in my opinion. Looking at the midsole construction, we have a foam midsole throughout the entirety of the shoe with some extended outsole layers here on the lateral and medial side. So we have a little bit of a rope protect here. Honestly, I like this construction feature better than what's used in the Nano 11 and 12. With this rounded construction, I feel like it's a little bit better for biting ropes, but then also not peeling off right away due to durability. So it's not as sharp in regard to its contrast of like getting caught on ropes and then pulling off and ripping off of this foam midsole. Looking at the outsole construction, we have a lug tread patterning throughout, full rubber outsole. We have that Metasplit tech up here in the forefoot. This is similar to what the Nano 9 and 10 offered, and I personally liked that feature in both of those shoes. And then looking at the insole, once again, it's held in with a light adhesive. However, you can take it out. It's a slightly thicker Ortholite insole, so it does give you a little bit of extra cushion, and that's why I've also liked this model for daily wear. But if you have custom orthotics or inserts, you can take this out. If you don't, I would say just probably leave it in and not mess with it. But I haven't had any issues with it sliding at all since taking it out. So if you do need to take it out, I don't think it's going to be the biggest deal. But overall, that is the gist of this model's construction. If you have additional questions on anything in this model, drop a comment down below. All right, guys, that wraps up my review of the Reebok NanoFlex V2. Overall, this model has been a subtle surprise. It is a step in a good direction for the NanoFlex line, and I think it could be a very viable training shoe for folks who do want to save a little bit of money. If you have additional questions on the NanoFlex V2, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. I will see you in the next one.